Good afternoon, ACPA. Thank you for letting me join you remotely. I've collected some insight from both Brene Brown and Sheryl Sandberg that translates really well into our work in higher education, and I'm grateful for the chance to share it with you. So starting off, in a 2008 survey, women working under female supervisors reported more symptoms of physical and psychological stress than those working under male supervisors. One of the reasons for this, as women, our attention to detail can be used to spot and exploit female vulnerabilities that men may not see. And it's not just the supervisors who are perpetuating these culture issues. A 2011 survey of 1,000 working women found that 95% of them believed they were undermined by another woman at some point in their careers. And unfortunately, women aren't always the best employees to other women. Research also shows that female subordinates can show less respect and deference to their female bosses than their male bosses. In the 1970s, researchers discovered the queen bee syndrome. Like a colony of bees, it seems there is room for only one female leader in the hive. This feeling of scarcity causes women who rose to the top to become obsessed with maintaining their authority. In these situations, the female boss focused on self-preservation and has zero interest in fostering the careers of women who aim to follow in her footsteps. Some will go so far as to even actively cut them off at the pass. And while this is clearly not the case with all women in leadership, especially in student affairs, it's unfortunately a problem that still exists in many of our workplaces. Because we see fewer women in leadership roles, we see less places for ourselves in leadership roles. We live in a culture of scarcity. Brene Brown describes it as the never enough problem. Scarcity thrives in a culture where everyone is hyper aware of lack. Everything from safety to love to money and resources feels restricted or lacking. This culture of scarcity poisons the vision of how to negotiate our roles in both the home and the workplace. We spend inordinate amounts of time calculating how much we have, want, and don't have, and how much everyone else has and wants. In reality, though, we're often comparing our lives, our marriages, our families, and our communities to unattainable, media-driven visions of perfection. Even when we compare ourselves to our neighbors and our colleagues, we're comparing all of our photos, the negatives, the blurries, to everybody else's highlight reel. So let's think about our seat at the table. Sheryl Sandberg tells a story about a group of people who gather in a conference room for a lunch meeting. The men sit at the conference table, and the women sit in chairs off to the side. When invited to come sit at the table, they demurred and remained in their seats. These 4 women had every right to be at this meeting, but because of their seating choice, they seemed like spectators instead of participants. We do this to ourselves more often than we realize. We put up barriers to our success, and we don't own our accomplishments. Instead of feeling worthy of recognition, we feel undeserving, as if a mistake has been made. And despite being high achievers, even experts in our field, we can't seem to shake the sense that it's only a matter of time until we're found out for who we really are. Even worse, we consistently underestimate ourselves, and we go so far as to put ourselves down before others can. In order to protect ourselves from being disliked, we question our abilities and downplay our achievements, especially in the presence of others. Here's some homework. Make a note to pay attention to how many times you say, "I'm sorry," when you ask a question or share an idea. Then make it a point to stop apologizing for your ideas and start owning them. Ask a man to explain his success. He will typically credit his own innate qualities and skills. Ask a woman, and she will attribute her success to external forces, insisting that she did well because she worked really hard, or got lucky, or had help from others. While we do owe some of our success to circumstance, mentoring, and chance, we need to own our role in our successes too. Men and women also differ when it comes to explaining failure. When a man fails, he points to factors like, "I didn't study enough," or "I'm just not that interested in the subject matter." When a woman fails, she's more likely to believe that it's because she has some innate lacking ability. So we need to move from saying "I'm sorry," "I'm busy," and "I'm not ready" to saying yes. Given how fast the world moves today, grabbing opportunities is more important than ever. Taking initiative pays off. It's hard to visualize someone as a leader if she's always waiting to be told what to do. IBM's first female CEO, Virginia Rometty, said early in her career she was offered a big job. She worried that she lacked the proper experiences and told the recruiter she needed to think about it. That night, she discussed the offer with her husband, who pointed out, "Do you think a man would have ever answered the question that way? What it taught me," she said, "is that you have to be very confident. Even though you're so self-critical inside about what it is you may or may not know, and that to me leads to taking risks." It's also critical to learn to say yes and. Yes, I would like to participate in this opportunity in X amount after I complete Project X and X committee assignment. We can't say yes to everything, so we need to be thoughtful in where we invest ourselves. Every job will demand some sacrifice. The key is to avoid unnecessary sacrifice. We all want the same thing, at the end of the day, to feel comfortable with our choices and to be validated by those around us. So let's start by validating each other. Knowing all this, how do we move forward? First, we must decide that true equality is long overdue and will be achieved only when more women rise to the top of every industry. That said, I am fully aware that most of us are not focused on changing social norms for the next generation, but simply trying to get through the day. Staying quiet and fitting in may have been all the first generations of women in the workplace could do. In some cases, it may still be the best path. But this strategy is not paying off for women as a group. Instead, we need to speak out, identify the barriers that are holding women back, and find solutions. We can't control the behavior of individuals. However, we can cultivate organizational cultures that hold people accountable for their decisions and treat people fairly. It's heartbreaking to think about one woman holding another woman back. As former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright so famously said, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. Women's negative views of female coworkers are often seen as an objective assessment, more credible than the views of men. Because when women voice gender bias, we legitimize it. Obviously, a negative attitude cannot be gender bias. It comes from a woman, right? Wrong. We need to look out for one another, work together, and act more like a coalition. As individuals, we have relatively low levels of power. Working together, we are 50% of the population and therefore have real power. My favorite way of thinking about this is to lift as you lead. As doors are opened for you, leave them open for other women to follow. As you are given opportunities to thrive, pass your privilege on to those who follow in your footsteps. Thank you.